Hello and welcome back. I'm Joe, and this is Workers and Resources Soviet Republic, still Season 4, and this is after the water update came out. Today, I would like to answer, if you're curious, if you can upgrade your existing save with the new water mechanics, if that works, what you have to do and how you have to do it, and probably a bunch of other things as well, because as far as I'm concerned, I would like to keep playing on this if the water works out. First off, about 2 or so weeks ago, I had a poll out asking if you wanted me to start Season 5 or continue with Season 4 now that the water update was out. At the time when I asked that question, I was 80% convinced that I could not get water turned on in a reasonable fashion on this save, so I felt that I had to restart, that I had to get to Season 5. The result of that poll was pretty clear. 60% wanted to go start with Season 5, and a few of you wanted to continue with Season 4 regardless of the water. Now, I interpreted that. That may be good, that may be bad. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure which way that went, but I interpreted that as you definitely want to see, the majority of you want to see the new water features, the new water stuff, the new water mechanic, and maybe figure out how you're going to use it in your own saves. Not necessarily saying you hate Season 4 and you want to get rid of it. You just wanted to see the new stuff. So I tinkered with this for hours. About a week ago, when water first came out, I made a huge 2.5-hour recording with upgrading to water, making everything work and blah, 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 and struggling and all those things. And since then, a lot has happened. I've learned a lot, and I'm going to share everything I know about water with you first. Then we'll see how you feel about this and how I feel about this, because obviously the frame rate is a little tricky right now, and that's fine. But there are a lot of things that we need to fix. But overall, happiness is okay, our population is okay right now, and most of the buildings getting most of what they want. No school, no job, kindergarten, that's all fine. Church, not gonna happen. Some electronic problems, not good. Some meat problems, but 300 people. Just a few of them don't get what they want. That is not the end of the world, because that's mostly due to the public transport that's not working perfectly at this point. So, yeah, what should we talk about first? Water. Here's the thing. There are 2 different types of water that you should consider for the game if you want to upgrade your game. The first type is drinking water. Drinking water is anything that goes to every building that has a person doing anything there. That person would maybe go to the bathroom, wash their hands, flush the toilet, maybe make some coffee, make some tea, like use drinking water for things. And that is simulated as just drinking water requirements. Pretty much every building will have this stuff at the bottom. There is the input pressure. It's kind of important, but don't overthink this. Then there's your daily water meter. Then there is your water quality beaker that tells you what you have. And then there's your sewage filling or your sewage pipe also. Because whenever you use water, you are going to produce sewage. That's just how it is. I believe at this point it's about a 1-to-1 ratio. Cool. Sounds great, Joe. Now what? Well, there are a bunch of different things that you have. Down here's the new plumbing interface, and I'm going to go over here. On the left is water-related stuff, and on the right is sewer-related stuff. Pretty simple so far, right? Yeah, I think so too. So, to get water, you need a water pipe, a water well, sorry. The water well produces some water. Currently, it's not everything is done, and this is still an internal beta, so by the time it comes out, it may be better, but what is the production per workday? It's about 170. And if you go to your big water well, it actually tells you that 215 cubic meters. So that's the production. But the production is meaningless if you don't have the capacity on the other end to supply or support that production. So keep that in mind. It's very, very, very important. Yeah, I don't think that maximum daily production per worker is 215. I think the whole building produces 215. But that's the first thing. Cool. They need these guys need power, so the water wells need power, and that's fine. You can also get a smaller water well that does not require workers but produces a lot less water. That makes sense, right? It's not complicated. Then you can get a surface water outflow that produces more water, but the water itself is generally dirtier. And if you look here, there's a pollution of surface, and the pollution happens just by having a city nearby, by having dirty water nearby, industries nearby, all those things. So if you want really clean water, you come up here, somewhere where there is nothing out there, where it's just nature, and you may be able to get down to 4% polluted. That is 90% pure, 96% pure water. The cleanest drinking water is counted as pure if it's 97% or above. 97% or above. So you could use this water right from the well and give it to your people. They would get a tiny health benefit. I didn't do the whole research on that, but a tiny health benefit, health penalty, not benefit, and that will be it. So if you have a hospital, you probably would be fine. But if you don't wanna allow that, then you have to add something that purifies the water. Luckily, the game has that. These are called water treatment plants. There's a small one and a large one. Pretty simple. Let's stay above ground for now. And that's what you have. You have about 150 cubic meters of water processed during the day. Then you also produce this much toxic. The funny thing is with these numbers, if you have really dirty water, for example, if you have 10% polluted water, which we kind of have right now, that's the quality of source that we're working with. If you have 10% polluted water, and it produces the 15 cubic meters of wastewater, it can't take any more water. So if you had, for example, 30% polluted water, the water treatment plant could only produce about 75 cubic meters of water. That's what Peter explained to me. So if this has changed since the time I'm telling you this, that's just how the game works. But at this point, if you're 10% polluted, you can produce 150 cubic meters of water because you're only producing 15 cubic meters of wastewater. If you pollute at 20%, you can still only produce 15 cubic meters of water, but your water is twice as polluted, so you're probably only going to be able to process about 75 cubic meters of water. Does that make sense? Kind of. Like, both of these numbers are your upper limits. You cannot go past it. So at best, you can do 10% pollution, which is not terrible. And if you go a little bit higher, this number will jump, to be fair. But in the end, it doesn't matter that much. You can min-max this, and honestly, this is not a perfect setup that I have right now, so don't take it as an example. I just try to make it work, but that's effectively what's going on here. Then you have a bunch of other things, very important things, actually. There's a water substation, looks like this, has these blue connectors, and there's a capacity to it. There's a water tank, and there's also a capacity to it. I don't know what the full capacity is. I really don't. I think the capacity is more related to what the pumps, what the pipes can get there than what the water substation can handle, because there's actually no percentage given on the water substation like it is, for example, on the power substation over here. So, yeah. In this case, we have 42, 43 cubic meters running through here a day, and that's what this one handles. That's obviously related to the buildings, and the buildings also tell you what they use per day. This is 1.13, and I did the math on this one, so I think it's 0.06 cubic meters of water per worker. But they also have to be inside the building. Like all the other times, you only consume power if anyone's in the building. If no one's in the building, if they're at work or somewhere else, you're not consuming anything there. So it's a very volatile system around that whole business. So keep that in mind when you make up your mind on any of these things. That's water. Something really, really important that you have to understand. There is a small water pump, looks like this. Has one in and one out. It requires power. And then there is a big water pump. Has 3 ins, 3 outs. There you go. Oh, one of the updates is if you click shift now, the connector lines go away. If you press control, the highlight goes away. And if you press them both together, it looks like this. So you don't have all those stupid lines anymore. So this is control, this is shift. Got it? Cool. Yeah, this big water pump has 3 ins and 3 outs, and I completely misunderstood that at the very beginning, because just because there are 3 connectors does not mean it can handle 3 pipes. What does that mean? Well, you have 3 pipe sizes, and I'm sorry, this goes a little into detail. I'm going to make a tutorial about this, so if this is all too much for you, skip like 20 minutes in the future. I hope I'm going to start building something. But I wanted to get over all of this because I think it will be really interesting, especially if you want to keep your old republic going. There are water pumps. So that's what I said. Effectively, the easiest way to think about this, and it's not completely true. No, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you this. The small water pump can pump 30 cubic meters on flat ground. 30 cubic meters, up to 30 cubic meters on flat ground. That's it. It can't do more. If it goes downhill, you get a little bit extra pressure because water flows downhill and you get a little bit more. If it goes uphill, the water pressure is a little less because there's more water weighing you down, so you can't pump as much. But the baseline is on flat ground is about 30 cubic meters. I think it's plus or minus 10 depending on the height difference, but 30. Use 30. That's not a lot. That is not a lot of water, because if you look at all our water pipes, the small pipe can move 26 cubic meters per day at max pressure. So if you have full pressure, that's how much it can move. The middle one, the medium water pipe, can move about 56 cubic meters, so just about double the diameter or double the volume as the small pipe, which is good, and this is already bigger than the small pump can handle. Got it? Good. Then there's the big water pipe, which can handle, 127 cubic meters. 127. That is more than what the big pipe can handle, what the small pipe can handle by a lot. So you cannot connect 3 of the large water pipes to the large pump and expect 3 times the output. In this case, 130 times 3 is 390. 390 cubic meters is not what the large pump can move. The large pump can move 90 cubic meters. I almost want to, this is what I wanted to tell you, and I didn't want to tell you, I'm going to tell you anyways now. This one has 3 ins and 3 outs. Each input, in my mind, can handle 30 cubic meters. That's not what this is, because it's a pump. The pump is inside the building. It has nothing to do with how many connections it has. But in my mind, the small pump, this one, has 1 in. It can move 30. Cool. The large pump has 3 ins. It can move 90. That's how I'm going to remember it, and someone's going to bring out a mod that breaks this whole system of mine, but that's how I'm going to remember it right now. But yes, the small pump can only move 30, the large pump can move 90. Why is that important, people? Who cares? Because the water flow is humongously... That is the thing that I spent the most time on figuring out why my stuff wasn't working, okay? That is my problem. And when you don't know what's going on, go to your overlays, maybe keep your overlay on over here by the buildings, and look at the pressure. But to be fair, the pressure doesn't matter a lot because it doesn't tell you a ton. Yes, we have high pressure in pretty much every building here. That's probably a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing, but nobody really complains, so that is fine. I care about the water flow. Right now, most of our systems are full. Most of our water tanks are full, so we're not going to have a lot of flow. But this one has a lot of flow right now because we're actually using a lot of water from this guy. So 150 cubic meters of water come through here. That happens because we have 2 pumps connected that both added together have a capacity of 90. Okay, a capacity of 90. They both have connected a large pipe to either side of these that goes into one of the water treatment plants. And this treatment plant right now is running at 100%, potentially because we have a water out on this side. And there's a water tower here. We're not using water right now, but this is where the industry is, plus the village that's connected on that side. And then it has 2 more pipes running over here, but as you can see, there's not a lot of water going through these 2 pipes. It's probably a lot of overlay that you haven't played with yet, so it may not make sense, but these numbers are super important to what you want to do later on. But the main thing that you want to concentrate on is about 150 cubic meters here. It's close to the same thing here, processing water there. I think this is 1 tick behind or something, so if I click now, there you go, it moves around, but it's fine. So these pumps pump the water in at a capacity that they can. Now, the treatment plant is the first bottleneck after the pumps, and there are 3 inputs that you can throw in here. And again, 4 inputs. So you can have up to 4 pipes connected to it. And again, the only thing that you should care about is that the big pump moves 90 cubic meters and the small pump moves 30 cubic meters. The large water treatment plant, the vanilla one, can handle about 150 cubic meters a day. I say that, and this one says 163, but use 150. Like, there is some discrepancies in the game just because of the simulation. Use 150. Two large pumps together are 90 plus 90 is 180. That is more than 150. So that is the max you can really connect to this thing, connect to the water treatment plant. If you want to connect more pipes, you shouldn't use these ones. You could use 3 medium-sized ones. They go pretty close to 150. So on. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, the water goes in here, and then the water treatment plant is the first bottleneck. If the water treatment plant has the workers that it requires, the chemicals that it requires, and at the point of playing this, it uses a lot of chemicals. It uses a lot of chemicals. I think they're addressing that, but they may not. So chemicals are super, super, super duper important and super expensive right now in this game. So yes, these are requiring a lot of chemicals, and there is a difference between how much chemicals they use to treat the water. So if you have pretty pure water, you only need to get 1 percentage point up, then you're going to use that number of chemicals. And you can actually adjust what your percentage should be, so you can play with that number too. I don't know why it only does steps of 5 or 10, but whatever. So you can play with that, and that changes the amount of chemicals you use, or it should at least. So, comes in here. The chemical plant is the first bottleneck. If the chemical plant itself has enough capacity to actually move it, which is just this red bar for the percentages, then you have to look at the next bottleneck. The next bottleneck is all the outputs. In this case, there are a couple things that you can look at actually. One, there are these pressure bars, and don't go crazy on trying to understand all of this. Effectively, right now, I have 2 inputs that come in like this. There's some pressure in there. Cool. And then 2 outputs that also have pressure. 3 outputs. You want your outputs to be relatively high pressure because that helps you push as much water out as you can, which on the flip side helps you push more water in. So the reason why these pressure gauges over here are not maxed out, which max out is around it doesn't match up. 3.68 is the max, even though the number that's pointing at is 6. So simulation. But just look at this gauge and say, oh, this is maxed. This is not maxed. This is not maxed because the pumps are not working at 100% capacity. Because the 100% capacity is 90, and we're only at less and at less. And I think if you look at this, 3.8 and 3.62, the second one is actually a little lower than the first one. So it's simulated, but don't go crazy on the bars. But what you want to do is keep your bar relatively high because, again, the water pipes say max flow at max pressure. Max pressure. That is important. If you don't achieve max pressure, you will never be able to move as much water as the pipe tells you. So that's super important. And then, yeah, to get this to go or to do the right thing, you just put another set of pumps in. I put a lot of pumps here because at some point it didn't work at all, and then it kind of worked, and I just had to make it work. And all of these pumps are pumping enough water when it's required. These towers are currently full, and that is good. That's what you want. You don't have to have them full, but you don't want to stay near 0. So what I could probably do is turn some of these engines off, and it would still work, and that's fine. But it's really up to you. So water comes in here, and you need a pressure. And then all that water, and I really feel this is nice and complicated. Some of you will appreciate this. Some of you will be like, nope, this is too much, never going to turn water on. Both is fine. I get it. I spent hours on figuring this out. I think I'm on hour 10 now. Is that a lot? I don't know. But for me, it's a lot. For me, it's a lot spending time on figuring out if I can keep playing this game or not, or the save. But there we are. And then there's water coming out of here. The water goes out to there. It's about 46 on this one. Seems like there's no consumption on this substation right now, and then a big consumption there. Here, you just have to make sure that there is enough flow going into the buildings, and as long as all of them are sumping, they don't have to be perfect, but as long as all of them are sumping, that should be fine. Some of these buildings don't currently have water. I could fix that if I wanted to, or I just don't. See, it doesn't have drinking water. But it's okay. And then you just make sure that the buildings that you do have get the water that they want. Cool. Simple so far, right? That's a lot of pipe. That was a lot of pipe placed right there. And they snap together, and that's great. Now the water pipe, because you can use pumps, does not care if you go uphill, well, does not care too much about the slope. And that's what I'm getting to next, because slope is complicated. You have no idea. But yeah, this is where we are, and everything's kind of working, and this is fine, and we are producing enough water. These water towers are full. I do have a water pump here? No, it's a water switch. Yes. The other thing I should probably talk about and briefly mention, I am using water towers here. They are on a really high part of the city. Let's turn the overlay on. As you can see, they're on a mountain here, and there's kind of a mountain on that side too. And then these water towers themselves, from personal testing, this is not the number that I know is 100% true, but I'm pretty sure these water towers are about 50 meters tall, so they can adjust water to a height of about 50 meters. I don't think the fill height of the water tower itself actually matters. There are a couple more buildings in here. There's a small water tower. Obviously, it's smaller. This one is about 30 meters high, so it can help with a height difference of 30 meters and just let the water run down, and that gets the max pressure that you want. Great. Then there's also a water reservoir. And this one, I don't know how deep the pump output is, but it's pretty deep. So only build this when you plan on having at least a pump afterwards. Otherwise, you probably run into issues. Ooh, it's getting complicated, trust me. This was the easy part, and we had 20 minutes. I'm only babbling on, not even saying anything really, but that's water. Just the water with the water pressure. So there's a water switch somewhere over here. And the water essentially just flows through here at the pressure that the tower gives it. But in the end, the pressure is dictated by the consumption at the end of these things. Meaning, if I would put another water reservoir somewhere in between the tower and the switch, then it would flow more water to that tower for now, as long as the top of the tower is below the bottom of the upper tower-ish. I guess it just has to be 50 meters difference. But play with that. It's really cool, it's really interesting. I like how they simulated it, but it gets really complicated. What was I getting to next? Oh yeah, this tool. Tool for measurement. You have to use this. In this case, I know that my water height over here is about 72 meters, wherever you want to look. That's great. And then you can see that down here, we go a little bit down, and now we're currently at 56 meters, so just 20 meters difference. Then there's a switch right here. It's still below 72 meters plus 50, so we have 120 is about our height that we have there. And then from here, it has to take the water all the way up to the water substation over here, which is at 93 meters, which is still less than 120 meters, but not less than 72 meters over here. So it's the height of the water tower that actually lets water flow into here. If you put a water substation somewhere over here that's above 120 meters, you would have to use a pump, because the water tower would no longer be able to do the water equilibrium, or whatever that's called. Someone that's more scientific than me, please put it in the comments what I'm trying to say. If the water is higher on one end and the other end, it tries to equalize, but it can't do that if the height that it wants to go to is too tall, without having already suction going that way. So you need a pump. Whew. Again, this is water. The complicated thing is still coming. But yeah, this works for water. Use the knowledge for the pumps, and I'm going to say it again. The small pump can move 30 cubic meters. The large pump can move 90 cubic meters. So all you have to know, don't worry about the pipe diameters too much, but when you see that your water flow is not as much as you want it to be, that is probably your problem. The next problem that you find is that your water treatment stations may not be able to handle what you want. Potentially, oh, do I have still cheat mode on? I think I still have cheat mode on, yeah. There's too much info in there. What am I saying? Yes, the average productivity on these guys, if that is too low, then your production is just going to be low. In this case, the production is low because my consumption is low. So there's a huge difference. Diagnosing this will take a little bit of practice, but I think you're going to get it, and use these numbers. And don't stare at your buildings too much, stare at the water infrastructure more and see how that works. And then here, it's kind of like power. If you see green or if you see some numbers all the time, that's probably okay. If you see white, that generally means something is not getting there. They're not getting what they're supposed to, and that's what you need to diagnose at that point. Great. Awesome. Wonderful. That's water, I think. What else am I missing? Oh, did I end up building a... No, that was a different save. To make water move, you can also use the technical services. That was a new addition. And the old technical services, these over here, do not have the upgraded stuff. They cannot be used with water. The new one, and I feel like I'm just going to show you because I think it's important. I don't think I'm going to use it though. As far as I know, modded ones at the point of playing this this version of the game right now also don't have the update. So I'm going to build one of these really quick. Give me that guy, give me this guy, build it. Let's see, can we speed this up? Awesome. So, we built it, that's happy. Now, this guy has, this is the new one, Technical Services 2, and this is the old one. The thing that's different is that the old one does not have the water and sewage stuff assigned. You can now buy sewage trucks or water trucks here at different capacities if you want, in addition to everything else that you could already buy before. Wonderful. To make these work, you need to add a water loading and unloading station. Looks like this. You just connect it to a water source somewhere, and then trucks can go here to pick up water. Pretty nice. There's the same thing for sewage over here. Same thing, you just have to connect it to a sewage thing somewhere, and then you can either pick up sewage here or you can drop off sewage here. Now, these guys, or these loaders and unloaders with the technical service, means you may not have to build the whole pipe infrastructure that we have here to make something work. Sometimes that may be worth it, sometimes that may not be worth it. The places where I found so far that it's worth it, in a beginner city, when you have maybe a power plant, a heating plant, some other industries placed a little further away from the city, you may not want to build really expensive underground pipe to get there. So you could just build a technical services, which is still expensive, get a couple trucks, which is still expensive, build the loading and unloading infrastructure near the water source that you already have. It's also expensive. Nothing is really cheap, but then you can use that to handle all your industrial needs at that point. The one thing that this guy cannot do, the technical service cannot do at this point, is fill up special water requirements for some industries. Like this alumina plant requires special water and special sewage. Those are generally shown with water connectors, water pipe connections directly on the building instead of just no connections at all like the vanilla food factories have. And then sewage, same thing, you get the brown connectors. The vanilla food factory actually also has a water requirement, but the amount is much less. In this case, only 8.5 cubic meters of water that it uses, but the alumina plant uses almost 30 cubic meters of water. So there's a huge difference. I don't know what the cutoff is, but it's somewhere around 15, I think. 15 cubic meters. No, I'm not going to go with that. Just some buildings need the special water connectors, some don't. Additionally, the alumina production, alumina production only requires water quality of 75%, so you don't even have to refine this, which I thought at some point I had that set up, but I guess I'm just using water from here, which is fine. So I could put just a water well somewhere in this area, and as long as I can get a water quality of 25% or less, we would be good to go here, and we don't need an extra water connector. I will do that if this ever runs out, but that's water here. Over here, the food factory requires water quality of 97%. If you remember, this is the number at which point water is considered pure and there's no more health penalties. I know that food factory requires it, and alcohol requires content this high too. There are a couple other ones, and then there are some really low ones, like the concrete plant, I believe, has a really low water requirement, 55%, and so on. No power supply missing. What? Interesting. There we go. So yeah, that's that. Yes, and by the way, I did replace the modded food factories because their recipes did not require water. That's why I had to replace these. And because it is producing a little less, I also had to build both of them instead of just one. And then I did have to replace the alumina plant because the original... Every building that you have built before you turn water on, before the water branch, will get the drinking water requirement. It will get the new updated recipes, but they're building specific. So a modded building will have a different recipe than a vanilla building. All vanilla buildings will get the upgraded recipes. but they will not get the external water connections like this guy. This guy did, I had to rebuild and replace and just auto build, and now everything is working. Pretty happy about that. But that's not automatic, so that's something you have to definitely do. That city over here is fine. Am I talking about, do I need to talk about anything else? I do know that the concrete plant is one of the weird ones where it does require special water, but that water can be brought in via trucks or via the actual water connection that you already have. But this one's one of the exceptions. I don't know why they decided to make an exception, but this one still works the way it is right now because it is connected to a water source. Just too high, and there's some sewage. Great. The asphalt plant does not need water. Nothing over here needs water to exist. I feel like the coal power plant probably should use water, unless I missed that. Did I miss that? Nope. Just uses coal and drinking water, but does not require water for cooling or anything else. So I feel like they should add that, but that's beside the point right now. So nothing on this side requires water outside of drinking water. Great. Then over here's the city. You just put a sewage pipe and a water substation down here, and everyone's relatively happy. Wonderful. Great. Let's talk about sewage. Sewage is complicated because sewage actually requires you to have a slope. The slope itself doesn't matter as long as there is a slope. It has to go from top to bottom continuously. It can't change that. The only problem is it has to stay below ground at all times. So if you have uneven ground for whatever reason, there's a dip somewhere, you have to work around that. You have to plan ahead. By far, placing the sewage was the most complicated thing I could do. And to make it actually work, I had to use this tool a lot. So I mapped out the whole path to get anywhere. So I knew, yeah, over here we're pretty flat. Nothing really happens. But then, where is it? There's the first switch over here. You can see that there's a tiny dip there. That was enough to be able to place a sewage here. All the other sewage connectors have to do the same thing. They have to flow from top to bottom, and I'll show you that also works. You go here, and then you go here. That's pretty flat, and you go over here, and now down here, that's your slope. It's just the slightest slope. It goes from 117 to 105. A slight slope change is enough for the sewage to flow down, but the sewage has to flow down the whole time. Disclaimer again, at the time of recording this, the sewer, what's it called? This guy. The sewage tank itself has to be lower than all buildings that want to drop the sewage into that sewer. So, in this case, this is getting complicated. That's why I say the sewage is the most complicated thing that you can do. In this case, the sewer is at 117 meters. Great. All of these are about the same height. And there's a tiny bit of, like, the sewer is below ground, so there's a little bit of compensation there. But just because the sewer tells you it's reaching, it's the wrong one, this one. Just because the sewer is telling you it reaches all these buildings does not mean that those buildings are actually able to put their sewage into that building, into that sewer. It's a little weird. I wish they wouldn't do it that way, but if a building is too low, it will not feed into the sewer and their sewage tank will overflow. I'm actually wondering, let's see here, give me this guy, 116. No, these heights are still okay, but this one may actually be able, yeah. I have to add another sewer over here. It's not overflowing right now, but the sewer that I had here, well, it wasn't there before, and then this one was overflowing because the height was just different. So keep that in mind. The sewer has to be at the lowest level of all buildings that you want to feed into that sewer, which makes things complicated. So slope is super important. It also means that right now you can still build on a flat map, but it may get really complicated because you have to have a really strict slope going down. It's not impossible though, and I'll show you why. The next thing we do here, this is sewage running down here and connecting into this switch somewhere, and these guys are little sewer pumps because I was already at a really low point here. Let's do that one. Point here is about 82 meters. Great. And then the point up here where we connected to is 89 meters. We had to raise our sewer pump this high. The only way to do that is to use sewage pumps. Look like this. There's a request out to make some that make a bigger impact, but this one right now raises your current height by 3 meters. Just so you know, it's 3 meters every time. So you can still go downhill here, and then you just have to add a sewer pipe, and a sewer pipe, and a sewer pipe. I mean, you get what I'm saying. I just had to add a lot here because otherwise it wasn't working. So that's a sewage pipe. And then you just continue this, and all you have to do is make sure that your slope is consistently down. You can never go up. When you try to go up, and I don't know that I have any, there we go. Requires proper slope. You can't go that way. Tunnel above terrain, doesn't like that either. So yeah, you just have to make sure that you have the right slope and that you are above ground at all times. Very important, otherwise you can't make this work. So this could get really tedious and complicated. I'll probably read it this 4 times. That was a lot of time that I spent, but great. But then you also have to recognize that sewage just flows. There is no water pressure in itself. But the sewer pipes, when you look at them, they tell you max flow per day, 169 cubic meters. Well, the thing is, if you have your substations that pump out 105 cubic meters and 72 cubic meters and some cubic meters over here, plus more cubic meters over here of sewage, if you have sewage sitting everywhere pumping out something, you have to consider the max amount that you can move. And over here, we get 135 cubic meters, some of it probably, or most of it probably coming from the village, but that's a lot out of 170. So you have to consider that when you build your sewer line. As you can see here, this is just moving the 179 that we already have, but that also means that the extra sewage from over here can't go anywhere because we're already past the max point of the sewer pipe. So what I had to do is essentially build a separate network after this point. And then there's this sewer pipe. That itself is also its own network. Then we have another sewer pipe over here that again is also its own sewer network. So the sewage pipes are easier to get to the max flow rate, but you have to think a little more of what you do with them. So this is all going downhill. It's not pretty. I tried to make it work. I didn't try to make it pretty. And here we have 4 sewer pipes coming in at the end. They kind of flow next to each other. And either you like this or you don't. There are manhole covers that will come up in random locations if you have it in the middle of nowhere. If you run it under the road, which I tried to do for at least part of this, let's look at this. They actually show up in the road and they don't stick out as much. So kind of cool design, but it doesn't make life really easy. But there are the lines, and that's your sewer pipes, and you can see how much they're used and how much they're not used. So that's pretty cool. So eventually they all drain into these 2 drain pipes, and again, because the max sewer pipe already has a certain size, you effectively need 1 connection per sewage drain. And right now I'm not bringing them to a sewage treatment plant because when I started playing this, the sewage treatment plant just took sewage water and turned it into less polluted sewage water, but it didn't produce water. By the time of recording this, the sewage treatment plant actually turns wastewater into water, but I think the numbers are off because you can't make 85 cubic meters of water out of 40 cubic meters of wastewater. So yeah, you can gain some water back with the sewage treatment plants, which is pretty nice. I don't know what the purity is when they're done with it, but there you go. Cool. That was sewage. That was a lot to talk about. We had 39 minutes. I won't be able to run anything. Maybe a couple other things that we should talk about. I am running at citizens' reactions hard again. Everything is on besides day. So yeah, the traffic management is on as well. And it seems to work. It seems to work. 78% is not perfect. This number was at 22,000 earlier. I think we're doing okay for now. If I have to, I will adjust this, whatever I need to do. Yes, I did take down the chemical plant over here because chemicals now require water. And I will also have to replace this one. Because water is required and water is supposed to be an input, I believe. Are you an input or are you not? I don't know if that one would show me, but if you go to the actual chemical plant, this one, it has a water in and a sewage out, just one of each. So I'll have to replace this one, but I'll probably just build a big battery of chemical plants here next time because it's already near the chemical production plant. The problem that I have right now is look at my imports. 1.3 million imports last last year, or last month. 3.2 million in imports. That is mostly chemicals. Chemicals to treat the water. So unless I can make this save work with the chemical requirements or paying for chemical requirements, I can't continue this because we just use a lot as long as we're producing, and that is very, very painful. I have them on auto purchase right now because it's still updating. Well, I'm still not completely done making this all work. Another problem that existed that you may face, the minimal count of wagons and the maximum train length was corrupted after the upgrade. I know that they addressed something. I don't know if it's addressed in your current version. So when you upgrade to the 0.8.7 branch, any of them, make sure that you go to your distribution offices and look at your numbers. Did I change all of them? Yeah, I did change all of them. Look at your numbers and just reset them by setting this to 1 and setting this to max, and then your distribution offices hopefully work again and everything is fine. That was a problem, which was one of the saves. I lost a lot of people because of that, and I couldn't figure out why, and then eventually Peter told me what was going on, so that was great. Yes, we have stuff going on over here. They're all relatively happy. I think that is good. There's something... Oh, yeah, well, I can't show you, but this was the problem where the prison was too low below the sewage collection, and because of that, it just had problems getting rid of any of the sewage. I do have a distribution office here that... Oh, actually, I'll show you this. Distribution office here that has water and sewage connected to it. And if you actually look at it, the different substations and buildings that have water are highlighted in ways, and the normal buildings are not highlighted. If I didn't have water... Well, the normal buildings are highlighted. The industries are always highlighted, even if there is a water substation or sewage connection right next to it, or connected to it. Just because the industries sometimes use more water than you expect. Excuse me. So I have this technical service to supply the guys up here with whatever they need. Actually get this a little bigger. Is that good? Yeah, that's fine. That's still fine. Interesting. But yeah, they can take care of all these water needs. And the nice thing is, if there is a water substation in the city, they will just go to that one. They're not going to every individual residence. If there isn't a substation or a sewer in there, they will go to every individual residence, and it will actually be highlighted in green. Pretty nice. But sometimes it's just not enough, and you may need a lot of vehicles to make all of that work. What is this? Is this the sewage truck? Great. And then the sewage truck has to go down here to the loading and unloading station for everything to work. Cool. That's a lot of details. I hope I didn't bore you too much, but those are the things that you have to do to make this work. In short, what do you have to do to make this work? For every city that you have to build a sewer network that is water, sewage, water source, water treatment plant. If you want sewage treatment plant, but also sewage dumping ground. And I honestly don't know if the sewage treatment plant at this point produces... I'm not sure. I don't think 100% of wastewater is consumed or is turned back into water, so there will be some sewage out. Also, currently I don't see a water out connection here, so that's not very helpful. You probably have to pick it up with trucks. But again, this is a beta version that's not even available on the public test yet, so there's still things that have to be changed. Don't worry about them too much. Cool. That should work. So yes, you have to build a sewer network. Very important. You have to build a water network. Very important. You have to make sure that you have enough chemicals to import for your water to do the things that you need to do. Very important. You have to have the workers that go to the water treatment plants. Luckily, these don't produce any pollution, so you can't place them anywhere in the city. Same with the water wells that don't produce any pollution, so that is helpful. You have to build the pipes with the numbers in mind. The pumps. The large pump can do 90 cubic meters, the small pump can do 30 cubic meters on flat ground. If you go uphill, it's going to be a little less. If you're going to go downhill, it could be a little more, but it also depends on what the bottleneck is afterwards. Very important. There will be some buildings that you have to replace. If you have some of the vanilla buildings, all of the vanilla buildings will get upgraded recipes. So this one, when I had it before, had this recipe in, but there was no way for me to actually get water to this building. Maybe there is. Maybe I could have done a line, but I didn't want to do a line because it requires a lot of water, and I already have a lot of imports with the chemicals. So there was no way for me to get water to this building, just for argument's sake. So I had to replace this building, otherwise this building would have been completely useless and I couldn't do anything else anymore. So that was something I had to change. The modded food factory had the original recipe with just crops, no water. To me that was cheating, that's why I replaced it with the vanilla one, because at this point there are no mods that can produce food with water. So I had to change that. Some of them will have pipe connections for your piping network, some of them won't. You just have to know what they are. If they don't have a connection, you don't have to worry about it with technical service or anything. They can get it out of the drinking water. Yeah, chemical, that's why I also turned this down, because it didn't use water to create chemicals. As far as I know, this building is turned on for water. Oh, we do have water quality here. Cool. That means my technical services are actually making these guys happy. I didn't think they were, but they are. So yeah, as long as all the every building will turn on drinking water and sewage production. Not every building no building will get a pipe connection, an extra pipe connection outside. So when you get into that situation, you have to add new pipes, or you have to replace the building to get that pipe connection in there. I think it's pretty straightforward. Was this worth it? I really like this map. I would like to play it longer, but again, to do the upgrade, just the piping in this mega city over here probably took me 2 or 3 hours, and then a little bit of fiddling, and then 6 hours of understanding how the water dynamics work, what the pumps do, what all those things do. But now that I know that, 3 hours, probably 2 hours. 2 hours to get this city working. Maybe I can do it in an hour and a half now. Hour and a half to get this city working. About 10 minutes to get this city working. The sewer was part of this city, so we're at about 2 hours now to upgrade this. At another 45 minutes or so to upgrade this city to work with water. Again, I have a water tower here, I have a water pump here, I have my sewage treatment plant, my water treatment plant right there, so that's all going through, and that is fine. Then I have some water running here. The only problem I have is running a sewer pipe. You see this? All the way down here. That's the only place I had water. I did not want to dig a hole, so I just ran down as far as I could, and I actually ran this underneath the road as much as I could. Well, apparently I missed the road in a couple places. Oopsies. Yeah, so how much did that cost? Well, I had 25 million in the bank before I started this, and I spent about 80 or 90 million. So I tried it with loans, but I couldn't keep up anymore once I got past 50 million. Now remember, this is all inflation, so it's more expensive in my game than it is in your game. I think that is okay. But it took a long time to get back to the numbers, or just to get everything built and everything organized, because it is all underground and it's very expensive in steel. So yeah, overall about 3 hours to upgrade the map that I have right now, 20,000 people, and I think I'm leaving it up to you to decide if that is worth it or not for your republic and your time. Again, there was a problem with the rail distribution office that didn't work correctly right away, and that was, well, eventually it was fixed. We are running into a lot of issues here. I think I need a new courthouse. I can build that in between. I'm just going to get rid of all of these. I tried to manage these a little better, but whatever. Yes, I can turn off crime and justice just for a little bit. I could reset crime too if that becomes a real problem, but I'm looking at the number up here. It is shrinking, not growing. That is not good. The happiness is also relatively low. I gotta keep an eye on that. If for whatever reason I can't recover this Republic, we will start Season 5, but I would really, really like to continue this because two things. This harbor is coming along. There's something I have to build right here. I'm going to tell you that next time. And then the city over here we just started with the dry docks. Would like to use them. Yes, we got some rail completed already. And this city is going to be the city where I'm actually going to show you how I think I want to organize piping, just in the city in general. So there's more to do here. I would like to do it. We also have a lot of steel right now, which is great. But, well, we have to get everything done first. And I like it. I love it. Yeah, this one I started filling in a little bit with gravel, but not really yet. I would like to buy some more trains, but I don't have the money at this point to do so. Anyways, as long as all of these people are relatively happy, 2 people missing food out of 500, that is fine. Pub, tavern, culture, electronics, meat, only 8 people, that's fine. This one, missing sport, that is not good. I have to address that pretty soon, but overall I think we're doing pretty well. Public transport is doing well. I added a couple bigger trams with just 2 engines put together so they can move more people, and that is important. Because, yeah, this one was actually overloaded. But looks like we are doing... Well, this terminal is full. That's not good. This terminal is never full. But, yeah, everything else is working. I'm pretty happy about that. Next time, I will try to build the chemical industry here because we need the chemicals. They are so expensive coming in. And we have all the materials that we need. We just have to build all the stuff that we need. At that point, I'd probably also show you that this works. There's a new button, change workplace depot for all vehicles. Yep, it's a new update. Where you can just say, I want you to go from that building and everyone go to the other buildings over here. And that's fine. That sounds exciting to me. When we do that, it will be great. I think that's what I have. I would have really liked to do any building in this episode, but as you can see, I talked long enough, and I hope I gave you some information, and if you can turn on water or not, I will make this in a more concise tutorial. I am 100% planning on that, but I think I have to wait until the water update is more refined, at least until it gets like halfway through the public beta. I think that's when I'm going to put it out. Until then, this feels pretty good, honestly. All of this feels pretty good. I think I have to get a couple bigger trains, just add a couple passenger cars, wagons to these trains, because this is a problem. It's a little choked up, and it's not very ideal for anything that I want to do. At least the trains are not get blocked here because of the way that I have set up the signals. As you can see here, that only one side can go in and out, the other side can only go out. So you have the correct through stations where you need them. It seems to work every once in a while. Why is this a regular signal? That's just silly. Yeah. No, this is good. I like it. I'm happy that I can continue this. Let me know what you guys think about everything. I mean, I'm recording this. You're going to see this in about a week and a half. So whatever you tell me, I've probably already moved on with something else. That doesn't mean I don't want to hear what you have to say. So please, please, please give me your feedback. Was this episode interesting, helpful, useful, stupid? Any of those things are actually valuable to me. The other episode that I had was just a lot of struggling with placing pipes, and in hindsight, I wasn't happy with it. So I saved you that 2.5 hours off, 2 hours, 2.5 hours off doing that. Instead, I just babbled for 53 minutes and 55 seconds. Wonderful. Really appreciate it. Yeah, that's all I have. Just have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone. See you next episode where we build stuff.